You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thank you so much for listening. Coming up, we'll recap last weekend's games and get you set for this week's schedule, including our Spotlight Game of the Week. That would be Houston actually getting on the field, playing host to Tulane. We will talk about that with Sam and Dustin from the Scott and Holman Pawdcast, which covers Houston Cougars sports in depth. Meanwhile, last week, SMU coughed up a 21-point first-half lead to Memphis, and after the defenses took hold in the second half, the Mustangs forced a Brady White fumble with 1:25 left, which set up Chris Dagar's 43-yard game-winning field goal as SMU topped the then 25th-ranked Tigers 30-27 to move to 4-0 on the season. Quarterback Shane Buechele threw for 3 touchdowns and a career-high 474 yards, giving him a nation-leading 1,326 passing yards through 4 games. Wide receiver Reggie Roberson had 5 catches for 243 yards and 2 long touchdowns before leaving with an injury in the third quarter. Mustangs head coach Sonny Dykes.
No doubt. That's what I told the guys after the game was, it's a great feeling to send your kicker out there for a game-winning 43-yard field goal and not have any doubt he's going to make it. Chris has just been such a difference maker for us. Even then, after he makes the kick, just being able to kick the thing through the end zone. He kicked it 8 yards deep, and we stopped him inside their 10-yard line. And so, made a huge difference in the game. It was a strange game. Both offenses played really well at times and not so well at other times. It was a little sloppy, I think, on both sides. Really got to give our defense a ton of credit. The way they played in the second half, particularly the fourth quarter, was just outstanding. Those guys, we just made plays when we needed to. Junior Aho with the strip sack was such a big play in the game. Mike Williams got in there and moved the pile up front for us. It was just good to see. We were a little bit banged up with Reggie out and TJ out, and just kind of struggled to get in rhythm on offense. But we made enough plays, and just proud of the guys for doing it.
Tulsa put an end to UCF's 21-game home winning streak as the Golden Hurricane took a 34-26 decision at the Bounce House in Orlando, playing its second straight game against a team ranked number 11 nationally. The Golden Hurricane overcame a 23-5 deficit and held the Knights' potent offense, which had averaged 50 points in the first 2 games, to 3 second-half points. Golden Hurricanes head coach Philip Montgomery.
I'm just proud of our football team. But for us, I will tell you, there wasn't a doubt, honestly, all week long preparing for this football team that we were going to come here and get after them. This is a team we know that they're explosive. They do all of those things, but we feel like we match up well with them. We feel like we have talent that matches with theirs. And, it was all going to be decided in between the lines. And so, for us, it's a great win for our school, for our university, for our program. And I'm so happy for our players. It was a great locker room. We took the Bounce House into the visitors' locker room. And we were bouncing.
Number 15, Cincinnati, 3-0 as they recorded 5 interceptions in Downing, South Florida, 28-7. The 5 picks ties an AAC single-game record. Defensive back Kobe Bryant came away with 2 of those picks. Here's Bearcats head coach Luke Fickell.
It was the final, 28-7. Obviously, comfortable win. I thought, a little bit for the first time. I could say I think we played. I don't want to say down to an opponent, down to an atmosphere environment. I think that we were looking for a little bit of energy, and it just wasn't there. So that was the one negative thing. Again, I think we played solid. I think we did what we had to do. It was great to see Trey Tucker with some special teams juice for us. He's a guy that's been right there on the edge, knowing that if you give him a chance, he's going to take one the distance. And I think we saw what Trey can do for us, and is going to give a spark to us. He was close last year. Still want to have some more opportunities to get Ryan Montgomery with some punt returns. I just think we got some dynamic guys. I don't think we had a bunch of opportunities for him today. But all in all, obviously a great victory. I think it's 16 straight now here at home. But also I think there's a lot of things that we can kind of look at to find a way to take us to the next level going into a bye week. that hunger and a little bit of anger inside that knows darn well we didn't play quite up to what the expectations that we would like to play. Winning is hard. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that aren't sitting in the same situation today, but I think we're in a really good spot, enjoying what we've done, but also realizing what we have to do to get where we want to be.
Navy was held under 100 yards rushing as they dropped a Commander-in-Chief Trophy Series game to Air Force by a 40-7 score. The midshipmen were without starting quarterback Dalen Morris, who did not make the trip. Tiger Gosselin got his first career start. East Carolina, after an opening pick-six score, was dismantled by Georgia State 49-29. The Pirates scored 29 points without getting a touchdown from an offensive formation as ECU found the end zone on a pick-six, a blocked punt return, and on a fake field goal. Just 3 games to talk about in the AAC this coming weekend. Saturday, Temple visits Navy. That'll be at 6 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Temple leads the all-time series 8-6. And the last meeting in 2018, Temple won by a 24-17 score. East Carolina travels to South Florida. That's a 7 o'clock kick on ESPN+. USF leads the all-time series 9-1 and were victorious in last year's contest by a 45-20 score. That third game we were talking about, well, coming up next, we'll look at our Spotlight Game of the Week, Tulane and Houston. We'll be joined by Dustin and Sam from the Scott and Holman Podcast that covers the Houston Cougars. That's next when the AAC Report continues after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices Altamont Springs.
The Houston Cougars are finally taking the field in 2020. They'll be playing host to the Tulane Green Wave. And time now to talk about that with Dustin and Sam from the Scott and Holman Podcast. They cover all sports Houston Cougars. Dustin and Sam, gentlemen, thanks for being here. How are you guys doing?
Hey, thanks for having us on, Jeff. Always good to be talking to you. Feeling pretty good. I guess this is as close as we've gotten to an actual football game, so I guess I have to cautiously believe it's actually going to happen at this point.
Yeah, always great to talk to you, especially great to talk to you now that we actually have something approaching confirmation. We'll see a real-life football game here in the next 24 hours, knock on wood.
Yes. So, yeah, actually now under 24 hours at the time we're doing this recording. And, I was starting to wonder, with Houston and Temple not playing, I was trying to see if I needed to – did I miss that they joined the Big Ten and didn't hear the news or something because it's been so long since those teams have hit the field. So you guys got Tulane coming in. And Tulane's got 3 games under their belt, 2-1, and outside of a second half collapse against Navy, they should be 3-0. So what sort of advantage do you think is it a monumental advantage having that much action under their belt as Houston has been waiting around, hoping to get a game in?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty significant advantage. Even a couple of weeks ago when we thought we were playing North Texas, you heard Coach Holgerson talking about what a big advantage, UNT having a couple of games under their belts was. So, I mean, I guess you have to take the positives that you can from it. At least Houston is going to come into this one relatively injury-free, having not played any games yet. And, you can look at it from, I guess, the perspective of, that Houston hasn't really put anything on tape in terms of what it wants to do this year. And, so I guess that is the positive way to look at it, but definitely I'm sure Coach Holgerson would rather have a couple games under his belt, especially with I think one of the big matchups in this game is going to be Tulane's got a couple of pretty good pass rushers going up against a Houston offensive line that really struggled, was very injured last year, and expected that unit to be improved. But I think having a game or two under their belt to kind of figure out the communication and everything would have been pretty advantageous before facing Patrick Johnson and Cam Sample and the rest of the Tulane defense.
And the only thing I would add is just, obviously, this is going to be week one for the Cougs. Obviously, they're not going to look like, the complete package just because it's been so long since this team took the field for an actual game. I will say the Cougars have had more than the average amount of practice. I'm not saying that makes them necessarily more game ready, but I think you saw a lot of teams in the week one of this season that probably had maybe a week or two of actual contact practices. And if there is one difference between what U of H is coming into and what those teams are coming into, is that U of H has had just under 2 months now of actual legitimate team practices and team activities, which I don't think eliminates all the week one issues, but maybe makes them a little sharper. I think maybe somewhat me talking myself into that, but I think that is something worth noting there.
I guess you could flip it around the other way too. You got 3 games of game film to look at against Tulane, so there's maybe an opportunity there to at least dissect that.
Absolutely.
All right, so talk about this long wait. I know you guys, your guys are doing a podcast, and you have no football action to talk about. So talk about how much of a challenge that has been for you.
I guess sort of, the thing that makes it the most torturous, actually, I think gave us the most content, because we did go into a number of weeks to this point expecting a game to be played, and you can find on the internet preview episodes for North Texas, a preview episode for Baylor. I don't think we never got to a preview episode for Memphis, but we certainly at least talked some about the Memphis game, in the abstract as the season opener in week 3. So, I think we had about 6 months of prep before that to get creative about, creating a podcast without sports to go into. Obviously, we had some preview of the season. I think we during the lockdown times, we were able to fall back on the fact that U of H has a lot of interesting history. We were able to actually, I think, get some guests that maybe we weren't able to get otherwise. So I think, in these COVID times, we had to get creative there for a few months. So I think that helped us maybe get a little creative here in the last month. But yeah, it's just been a loop of us running up to the football, kind of like Charlie Brown and the old Peanuts comics. And in this case, the football being an actual game week, and us getting closer each time, but still in the end, getting the ball pulled up and us falling on our butts.
Yeah, it's been frustrating. You can tell it's been frustrating. Sam and I rarely take a week off. Even when during the off season, we almost always we make a point to try to every week have content. So the fact that we took this past week off, just kind of in frustration. I'm just being tired of doing 2 weeks in a row of game preview episodes and then watching all that. And certainly, us the podcasters, not the people that were most invested in these football games happening, not the people that are most frustrated by those games not happening. But definitely, we did our little bit to put our little bit of time and effort into getting ready for those games as well. And obviously not having that happen has been a little frustrating. It still doesn't feel real. I still, even as we're, I feel like pretty good. This is 97% chance we're going to see football tomorrow. I still think it's going to surprise me when the game kicks off, though, because it feels like we've been doing a podcast about nothing for quite some time.
Well, I kind of look at this too as you've had 5 cancellations, and you lost 2 games for the same date. You had Memphis originally on the schedule. Then you were going to get Baylor, which would have been a renewal of an old Southwest Conference rivalry, and that one goes by the wayside. So, as far as the fan base goes, I think they've got to be all pent up and just ready to let it loose.
Oh, absolutely. I think the Cougar fans are kind of taken along with the players and the coaches, which is just very, very overly ready, have been ready for quite some time to see some actual football get out on the field. And I think that Baylor loss hurt more than any, just because, it felt like we were not only getting a game in, but a game that Houston fans, would have wanted to play for years and we haven't seen in decades. So to get that one pulled out at the last second felt particularly like a kick in the pants. But I think the Cougar fans, the Cougar players, Cougar coaching staff, absolutely everyone remotely associated with this program is just about ready to jump out of their skin at the thought of actual football happening.
All right, so let's talk about this team going into the 2020 season. Clayton Tune is the man at quarterback again?
Yeah, it's very much Clayton Tune's team at this point. Holgerson's been very consistent since, back in February, March, that this was Clayton Tune's team. This was Clayton Tune's job, and that was kind of a big storyline in spring camp before the other big life-altering storyline for all of us kind of took over.
And so what do you expect as far as, the growth of Clayton Tune as quarterback and the growth of the Houston offense in the second year under Holgerson?
So I think what we saw from Clayton Tune last year is we saw that he had the toughness. We saw that he had the physical tools and at least some of the mental tools as well. I think something I noticed, obviously, when he was under pressure, when he was not getting ideal levels of offensive line play, which quite honestly was most of the games Clayton Tune played last year, you could see maybe the mechanics get a little sloppy, and you can watch the film and see him make throws that you definitely shouldn't have. The passes attempted to interceptions ratio is way higher than you like, but you also rewind it and be like, well, this guy's a true sophomore playing on a not that good offensive line in front of him, and a lot of his key guys at the running back and receiver positions not there. So you take that, mix in the context there, and you think, okay, well, Clayton Tune's sophomore year wasn't too bad. I think what really impressed me the most is that dealing with a lot of not ideal circumstances, dealing with a lot of the stuff he dealt with, that you didn't see him get a lot of the telltale signs of quarterbacks who have really gotten mentally damaged. You didn't see him hearing footsteps in the pocket. Like, he still stood in there, took the hits when he needed to, didn't get over-reliant on checkdowns, and I don't think you saw his accuracy suffer. And I think the most important thing to me is just that I didn't see a throw on the field he couldn't make. There were times where you think, that wasn't the best decision. Maybe he shouldn't have thrown that into double or triple coverage, but it wasn't a lack of arm strength. He's not De'Aaron King as a runner, but he's not a statue by any means. He is someone that an opposing defensive coordinator will definitely have to respect, that if you don't spy Clayton Tune can get 15, 20, 25 yards in the run game. And just, I think the biggest thing that Clayton Tune's junior year is going to depend on, I think, obviously somewhat with him, but I think it's really the line in front of him as much as anything. If he's getting similar offensive line play in front of him as last year, I mean, I don't think we can expect him fairly to progress, but if he's not having to deal with 11 different offensive linemen starting a game like he did last year and a new combination of 5 guys each week in front of him, I think Clayton Tune can be a guy that's in the all-conference conversation when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I don't really have too much. Sam kind of hit what I wanted to hit on there, which is I think that Clayton Tune's progression this year is going to go hand in hand with the progression of the offensive line, and hopefully it's a healthier offensive line. It almost couldn't possibly be a more injury-prone offensive line than what Houston dealt with last year. Just the numbers, it's rare that ever happens to anybody. Hopefully it won't happen 2 years in a row, but if that line is able to progress, then I think you're going to see Clayton Tune really take a step forward as well, because if you look at the numbers last year, they're really not that impressive, and it's easy to get the impression that Clayton Tune didn't really have a strong year, but I thought he actually played very well. To kind of echo what Sam said, I thought he showed that he has the arm talent to make the throws, to be a danger downfield, and he showed that he has the leg talent to be someone that you actually have to pay attention to and you can't take for granted. So just his development is going to necessarily involve getting more of a pocket to throw out of, because there just are very few quarterbacks that could have really done much of anything last year, given the lack of protection that the Houston offensive line, the mash unit that it was able to provide.
And who are his playmakers? Who are the guys that are going to help get him successful offensively?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys to like in the wide receiving core. You have to start with Marquez Stevenson, one of the fastest, most dynamic playmakers in the conference. Keith Corbin, who took an injury redshirt after 4 games last year, comes back as well. He is another big-time playmaker for Houston. So those are the 2 main guys, but a lot of receivers. And really, just up and down the team with the offensive line, the receivers, the theme that you're going to hear a lot of is just a lot of guys, maybe played a little bit earlier, than they were expecting to, and got some more exposure to the first team than you would have wanted them to have early. But some of those guys are going to now be, you got experienced guys at your third and fourth receiver spot, even after Corbin and Stevenson being kind of the headline guys. So really exciting wide receiving group, and then the 1-2 punch at running back, a couple of heavy runners in Kyle Porter and Mobile Carr, who have shown really well up until this point. Carr, a guy that the coaching staff was intentionally using in only 4 games last year to make sure to get one more year of eligibility out of him. And Kyle Porter, the former UT Austin transfer, who was progressed during his time on campus. So really excited about those two guys as a 1-2 punch at senior running back. So really pretty excited about the playmakers around Clayton Tune.
Yeah, if you might remember, Carr actually, I think, had almost 100 yards in the first half against UCF last year. I think, obviously, the Cougars, really both sides of the ball, tapered off a bit in the second half in that one, and Knights didn't have too much trouble finishing it off. But I remember watching that game and watching him gash what was a really good UCF run defense last year and thinking, yeah, that's why they want this guy around for another year. That's why they want this guy on a team with a lot more of a supporting cast. Obviously, staying healthy has been a big bugaboo for Mulba over his career. He's missed time in nearly every season prior to last year when he was held to 4 games. So obviously his ability to stay healthy, I think, will be just incredibly critical. But if he's able to stay healthy for most of this year, yeah, I think U of H is going to have a really difficult running attack.
And on the defensive side of the ball, what do you see going on there?
Wasn't a great year for us defensively last year, but I think that wasn't a surprise really for anyone. It was, the 2018 was one of the worst defenses in U of H history. And yet somehow that 2018 defense had Ed Oliver and extremely senior heavy at most positions. I think we completely graduated our 2 deep at cornerback. So it was kind of before the season last year. It was just like, it wasn't like, hey, who do you like at cornerback? It was, who are they going to put on the field to play this position? And the best guy last year was a guy completely new to Division I, Marion Williams. Actually, really the first recruiting coup of this class. He was set to enroll at SMU, and then at the last minute was talked into coming to U of H, and was definitely our number 1 corner last year. And you saw him have good games against some really good receivers. Gabe Davis from you guys, who's in the pros now, first round pick. God, I can't believe that I'm spacing on his name for a split second here. Oklahoma guy. It was a Houston.
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb. How did I forget CeeDee Lamb? CeeDee Lamb, was held well under his average. He drew a lot of tough assignments, and more often than not, actually looked quite good. But I mean, it was a revolving door on the other side of him. You saw teams number 2 and 3 receivers have career days against the Cougars, and the Cougs brought in a lot of instant impact guys, a couple of real good JUCO recruits, Jace Rogers and Art Green, a couple of D1 transfers, Marcus Jones, who's a freshman All-American at Troy, and Kelvin Clemens, who played spring ball at Minnesota but decided to transfer and had to sit out last season. And I think Clemens is hurt right now, and guys at safety too, Giovanni Stewart, who kind of plays a safety linebacker hybrid. He played for Holgorsen, West Virginia, actually went to high school at Houston powerhouse, Katy High, and elected to use his last year of eligibility with the Cougars. And he's an instant starter. Jordan Moore, who got a bit of a cameo last year, was a 4-star, redshirted at Texas A&M, and came here in a front 7 where basically every single guy who played a meaningful snap last year returns, and Grant Stewart, the one all-conference defender on the Cougars team, has moved to linebacker, a group that already had a pretty good amount of experience. I wouldn't say the Cougars linebackers were really good last year, but I think considering basically none of those guys had meaningful Division I experience prior to 2019, I think they exceeded my expectations. And I'm not going to say the Cougars were a good run defense last year, but the Cougar run defense occasionally showed a pulse. And that was kind of the story of the defense for us last year, was just pretty low expectations. You occasionally saw good first halves and signs of life, but it was just very apparent that the greatest football coach of all time couldn't have laid hands on this Cougar defense last year and produced anything other than maybe a bottom 30, 35 unit. But you have everyone back. You bring in a lot of instant transfers. You have a coordinator in Joe Kaufman that I think Dustin and I both like. He had a lot of really good defenses at Arkansas State that were really aggressive, really havoc creating. And I think the hope this year is that you see some of that come to fruition. I think you saw them kind of trying last year, but just limited by personnel, limited by experience, and still a lot of unknown, because the last time this defense took the field, it was not a good defense. But the hope is experience and bringing in some instant impact guys at positions of weakness last year really helps. The Cougars I think, have a good enough offense that this doesn't have to be a top 25, top 30 unit for this team to really feel a positive impact, but this needs to be a top, I think, 60, 55 defense. I think that's not a crazy prediction for this team, although, again, a lot of unproven pieces.
Yeah, to just kind of underscore something Sam said there, I think the reason it's easy to feel optimistic about this defense as much as it struggled the last 2 years is just the double effect of A, getting so much back, being one of the leading teams in the entire country in terms of returning production on defense, and then on top of that, just adding so many guys up and down the depth chart on defense in terms of transfers that were sitting out last year, or like Sam mentioned with Giovanni Stewart coming immediately eligible from West Virginia. Just so many guys that you feel like would have made this defense much better last year. So just it's almost impossible to overstate just how much more stocked with proven Division I talent the two deep on defense looks this year as opposed to where it did last year. And to just really kind of circle back to where Sam started there, which is to talk about the cornerback group. We talked about this, during our season preview. You got to Marion Williams, who has, one of the cornerback positions tied down, and it looks like Marcus Jones, the Troy transfer that Sam mentioned, is likely to have the other one. But we just counted guys, either that got eligible or came back from injuries, or transferred, or JUCO guys that signed, and we were just trying to count how many guys does Houston have at the second cornerback position that would have 1,000% been the other starter across from Marion Williams last year? And it's like 5 or 6 at least, just easily without a question in my mind. So that, I think, maybe underscores more than anything just the difference in what Houston's roster composition is going to look like. And we knew, Sam mentioned the defensive coordinator, Joe Kaufman, someone who came in with a pretty proven track record of really wanting to play attacking on defense. And I think he was so concerned with his cornerbacks getting beat that it was hard for him to have any faith in his defensive backs to really feel confident, getting really very attacking. So I'm curious to see what he's able to do with a secondary that he has already spoken out very positively of, and that I think is going to look dramatically different and dramatically better than last year. How does that open up the defense as a whole to be more attacking, with not being quite so worried that your cornerbacks are just going to get immediately burned?
We don't talk punters a lot on this show, but how do you replace Dane Roy, the all-world punter? I mean, this guy was a weapon for flipping field position.
Yeah, that is a tough loss. It is not too often that you come into a season and you go, man, I think the biggest loss from this last year's squad might be the punter. Just that was how good he was. And just remarkably accurate at keeping the ball, just not just hitting the booming punts, but the accuracy to pin the other team deep, almost never putting it in the end zone for touchbacks. Really watching Dane Roy just progress and get better and better and better, and then just have that unbelievable, maybe the best punting season in school history as a senior was really exciting. So it hurts to see him go. Houston did bring in another Australian through that same program that brought Pro Kick Australia, that brought Dane Roy to us in the first place, a young man named Lane Wilkins. So he'll be starting off as a freshman. You never really know with punting recruits quite what to expect. As much as there's pretty well documented all the kids coming over from Australia, it's still hard to really find numbers or to really know what to expect from him. But if his development over the 4 years on campus is anything like Dane Roy's, then that would be obviously pretty exciting for Houston.
Yeah, it was so cool to see him progress, because he was never bad. He started out at a pretty solid level when he got here, and you could tell pretty quickly he got the placement part of punting down. So he was always pretty good at dropping it in a spot, but just you saw the leg strength just take an unbelievable jump his senior. He wasn't just able to drop it in just the right spot, but he was also booming 50, 55, 60-yard punts. I mean, you don't get the same level of excitement of saying, oh, it was the best quarterback season or the best running back season in school history, or the best punter season in school history. But U of H has had some good punters prior to him. One of them, Richie Leone, is still in the Canadian Football League, to this day, or whenever Canadian football resumes. So he's had some good guys come before him and had the best punting season in school history last year. He was also just a very popular guy among the fan base. Certainly from my perspective, as a 32-year-old guy, it was kind of cool to have like a guy roughly my age on a college football team. It's been a long time for all of us that we can, say, oh yeah, like that guy has a similar life experience to me. And that was kind of cool. And he always would have like interesting content. His freshman season, he had the whole team try Vegemite, and it was a very funny video. It was cool. He was a very popular figure among the team, and he's certainly missed for his on-field contributions and the off-field as well. He's always going to be, someone like, I wouldn't even say a cult figure, because I think pretty universally among, Cougar football fans, Dane Roy is someone we hold in pretty high regard.
So is Wilkins also a former ice cream salesman? Is he also a little bit older than the normal college kid?
I think he's a fresh-faced, like 22 or 23, as opposed to Dane, who I think came in when he was 27 or 28. I could be wrong on that. I think he's a little younger, but probably a bit older than the average freshman.
Well, you guys obviously do a good job of talking about and covering the American on your podcast. So I want to get your thoughts on the rest of the conference. And you've had some extra time to look at the rest of the conference. Give me your thoughts on what you've seen so far, and how do you think it's going to play out?
It's interesting. I think everyone who we expected to be at the top, I think, has shown why. Like the way UCF ran through Georgia Tech and ECU kind of demonstrated, hey, like this is an offense that's taken a step forward with Dylan Gabriel. This is a team that I think was kind of ahead of schedule last year, be 10-3, but it's also a team that has to replace some key guys, and you saw some of that against Tulsa. You saw when the offense isn't breaking off big plays, it's you're not. This is an offense that isn't just going to be a dink and dunk, move the ball kind of. This is an offense that's going to have the at least like 7 or 8 30+ yard plays. And if you get the lack of explosion like they did against Tulsa, bad things are going to happen. But I think it's early enough in the season. We don't know if that's just, hey, Tulsa and their 3-3-5 stack matches up bad with UCF, or larger problems. I think it's too early to say with that. With Cincinnati, I think their defense is as advertised. They just absolutely suffocated an Army triple option offense that I still have memories of hanging 70 on us in our bowl game a couple years ago. And strength of schedule aside, Army would probably give more defenses than not some trouble, and just Cincinnati made them look like a junior high team. But their offense looks real sketchy. I don't think Desmond Ritter's taken a big step forward. I don't think they've also shown a willingness to open up the offense. And I think losing Mike Warren as a running back, I think that really took the wind out of their sails offensively. They don't have a guy in that roster right now I feel can replicate what Mike Warren did. And, Memphis looked good against what looks like a good Arkansas State team, but like, what is Memphis now? They had the whole month off there in the middle, and I don't think they looked bad against SMU, but obviously two games a month apart, it's kind of hard to judge what a team is. I think before I pass off to Dustin, I think to me the nice surprise has been Tulsa. Like I didn't expect Tulsa to be in the ECU or USF tier. I thought Tulsa would be a solid team, but I didn't expect them to be I expected them to be a bottom 4 team in the league. I thought they'd be a team good enough to upset you if you didn't bring your A game. But looking at their first 2 games, obviously their offense didn't look great against Oklahoma State. But now we've seen the Cowboys play a few other games. It's like, wow, Tulsa did pretty good there. And I really thought Tulsa was going to take a step back defensively, because they brought back Zaven Collins, who I think is going to be pretty much a lock first team all conference defender this year. Yeah, he's a dude. But they also lost Cooper Edmiston, Manny Bunch, a guy whose name I'm forgetting, who I believe is on the Bears right now. So they lost some legitimate talent from last year's defense, and they seem to have improved, which I think is a hallmark of a good program, and maybe not something I expect from the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. So I think the middle is a little bit stronger than we expect. I think that's kind of my general takeaway. I'm curious what my co-host has to say.
Yeah, I think my takeaway from the American Athletic Conference so far has just been that it's a more wide open race than maybe I expected coming in. I think we when we previewed the conference, we kind of expected that top tier to be UCF, Memphis, Cincinnati in some order, and Sam kind of hit on it. UCF just obviously offensive looked very frustrated against Tulsa in a loss. Memphis just lost to SMU, turned the ball over 4 times and looked pretty rusty after taking the month off. And Cincinnati, kind of like Sam mentioned, I'm terrified at the idea of going up against that defense because they look incredible, but that offense looks like it has a long ways to go before it would be even, decent offense, in the middle of the pack for the rest of the AAC right now. So there's really no one team to me that stands at the top of the conference that you just go, oh yeah, like that team, really has things figured out on both sides of the ball. That team really looks like, there's no one team I would feel confident is going to be, betting is going to be one of the top 2 teams to go to the conference championship game this year. So I kind of like that, is this wide open year, and is the year that, we lose the divisions in the American Athletic Conference. So instead of looking at division races, we're just looking at who are going to be the top 2 teams out of this whole, 11 team mess. And yeah, anyone from from Tulsa to SMU to Memphis to Cincinnati to Houston even. I think there's just a ton of teams over half the conference at this point that you could go, yeah, I could envision them being one of the top 2 teams because there doesn't really seem to be a clear delineating line between maybe the best 2 or 3 teams in the conference and everybody else.
And it does, again, go back to what we've said on this show many times, is this is a very strong conference. You could stack it from top to almost bottom. I think you kind of, leave USF and East Carolina on the table at this point. But compared to the other conferences, the AAC is 9 deep, which I don't think a lot of conferences can say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, are you getting excellence from those top 9 teams? I'm not so sure about that, but I mean, ask Oklahoma State how comfortable they felt for most of that game in Stillwater. And, I think obviously we have a lot of season to play, and, many people, myself certainly including that, have looked foolish judging seasons based on 2-3 game sample sizes. But yeah, I think it's a deep league, and I think, like Dustin said, it's a lot more wide open than maybe we expected when we were kind of taking a look at the league before the season started.
Yeah, and of course, and it would be unfair to ask what you think Houston's going to do, having not played a game yet. But based on what knowledge you do have, without having to play any games, what do you anticipate for the season?
Dustin, why don't you take this on? I will. I have an answer, so I will think about it. But
I said it was an unfair question, and I asked it anyway, right?
No, it's legit. I think the expectation is just. I think last year's team was more competitive than the 4-8 record indicated, and I get it. I get that it was very brash and very unprecedented when the coaching staff basically said we were going to sit a lot of guys with the intention of coming back in 2020. It's not something you see at least directly broached in college football. If not, I think teams have done it before. I think just it's a whole lot more subtle and a whole lot more subterfuge about how you go about it. And obviously the 4-game redshirt rules kind of changed the calculus there. I think the team is competitive, but I think we need to see more quarter efforts. There were some great halves last year. I think no one was more shocked than Dustin and I when we actually made a game of it in the first half in Orlando, and we weren't that shocked also when the wheels kind of came off in the second half. Ditto for games, Memphis, Cincinnati, SMU, Navy, games where the Cougars were competitive at times, but clearly didn't have that extra something that those teams did to get over the top. And I don't know if I don't know if this is a team on par with all the teams I just mentioned from last year, the UCF, Cincy, Memphis, Navy, SMU, etc. But, I'd really like to see this team split the difference or get a lot closer to what those teams were than what last year's team is. Obviously, there are questions, but there's also a lot of guys who are proven commodities. Marquez Stevenson and Keith Corbin have both have good college resumes. Kyle Porter, I wouldn't say a full season worth, but I think Kyle Porter with Mulbacar, I think can be one of the better 3 or 4 rushing attacks in this league. I think for me, it's just if we're approximately as competitive as we were last year, I'm trying my best not to read too much into what 2020 is, because this is such a weird season. I mean, you have to tell us we just had a whole month's worth of games canceled. So, I think people will read too much into, what the season is. I think, with the eligibility pause especially, it's almost a season to maybe experiment if you're not going to be competitive. But I think this fan base, myself included, would be very disappointed if this isn't a lot more competitive team. Does that mean 9-0 and win the conference title? I don't think so. I think the schedule is a little difficult for that. I think this league is too good for that. But, my expectations is 6-3 for the remaining 9 games we have left, maybe 5-4, but very competitive in those 4, and just looking like a better team on both sides of the ball than we did last year. And then maybe coming back into 2021 with most of these guys. Obviously, theoretically, you could have everyone back, but you also have scholarship limitations and dealing with the financial realities of life post-COVID. So I don't expect we'll have a carbon copy of this team in 2021, but I'd like the team to be more competitive, and then, knock on wood, in a more normal season in 2021, have most of these guys back, and then make a serious push for the conference title then.
Yeah, see, Dustin, you could say, "Hey, what he said," but
I am gonna actually echo a lot of what Sam did say, which is just that I think competitiveness is the big thing, and kind of like Sam mentioned, is just last year it was. Houston could do some things and make some trick plays happen and maybe jump on some turnovers and whatnot and stay competitive for a half or two. But just the talent deficit that they were at showed itself over the full 4 quarters of pretty much every game that Houston was in. And kind of going back to the previous question about the AAC just not looking like it has that clear upper tier this year the way that it did a year ago. You expect those games. You expect there to be a lot of competitive games among those top, 7 or 8 or 9 competitive teams. And I think Houston should look like they belong in that tier. Does that mean that, I'm not saying that they have to be top 2 and go to the conference championship or bust. But, I think if 4, 5, 6 games into the conference season, if Houston is not in the race for one of those, at least in the race for one of the top 2 spots, I'll be disappointed because I think this team, talent-wise, there's no reason to believe that they can't be competitive and kind of in the mix given, the flaws that are, Houston has them, but every other team I think in this conference has at least a flaw or two to mention of their own at this point as well.
All right. And now we have reached the shameless plug portion of the program. And gentlemen, please let the folks know where to follow you on social media and all the good stuff you guys got going on with the Scott and Holman podcast.
Yes. So for social media, we are primarily Twitter users. That's our main way of communicating with social media. So it is at SH Podcast, and we've got the paw pun in there because Cougars are cats. So it's SHPAWD Cast, SH Podcast. You'll find us on Twitter. We like to interact with pretty much everybody across the college football landscape, especially fellow AAC fans. We're always talking AAC. So if you're active on Twitter, be sure you give us a follow on there. And if you want to hear our breakdown of either the game this week or generally get our analysis on the Cougars, anywhere that you get your podcast, you can search the Scott and Holman Podcast. That same pun in there, the PAWD, obviously. So search Scott Holman Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Outstanding. So, Dustin, Sam, as always, you guys do a great job, and we appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having us, Jeff. Always awesome.
Yeah, always enjoy talking to you, Jeff.
Tulane and Houston, a Thursday night affair, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. Houston leads the all-time series 17-7, and they were defeated by Tulane last year, 38-31. A look at this week's rankings, the conference players of the week, and more. And the AAC report comes back right after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fagley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Nightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Nightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Nightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this. We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys? My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Nightline Sports Network.
Taking a look at the latest rankings in the AP poll, Cincinnati moves up 4 spots to number 11. SMU debuts at 18 as Memphis and UCF drop out of the AP poll. In the coaches poll, they have Cincinnati coming in at 11, SMU at 21, and UCF holding in at number 25. The conference players of the week, it looks like this. On the offensive side of the ball, Shane Buechele, the quarterback of SMU, he completed 32 of 45 for a career-high 474 yards and 3 touchdowns, a career-high 501 yards of total offense. That's good for second on SMU's single-game all-time record chart. Buechele, he registered his 8th career game with 300 yards passing, 4th career 400-yard game, ending Week 5 with 1,326 passing yards, leading all NCAA FBS players as he led the Mustangs to a 30-27 win over Memphis. The defensive player of the week, Zaven Collins of Tulsa, the linebacker, led a stout Golden Hurricane defense. UCF, which came to the game averaging 50 points in his first 2 games, only were able to score 3 second-half points as the Tulsa Golden Hurricane rallied for a 34-26 win, snapping the Knights' 21-game home winning streak. Collins had a team-high 10 tackles, 3.5 of those for loss, an interception, 2 pass breakups, a quarterback hurry, and a safety that accounted for the Golden Hurricanes' first points of the game. He has 7.5 tackles for loss through the first 2 games, ranked second amongst NCAA FBS players at 3.8 tackles for loss per game. Special team players of the week, Chris Nagar once again gets part of that honor. It's a shared honor this week. He scored 12 points, 3 of 3 on field goals, and 3 of 3 on PATs, including the game-winning kick in their victory over Memphis. And Lashlyn Wilson, the Australian punter from Tulsa. Is it Lachlan or Lashlyn? I think it's Lachlan. Anyway, Wilson played a key part in the big come-from-behind victory for Tulsa. Averaged 45.1 yards on 7 punts and saw 3 of his punts down inside the UCF 4-yard line in the second half, including one inside the 1 late in the contest. And again, that was very key in Tulsa winning the field position battle in that game. And one last note before we depart, Commissioner Mike Oresco has announced the scheduling format and timelines for conference play in the 2020-2021 American Athletic Conference men's and women's basketball seasons. The plan was developed in consultation with the Americans Athletic Directors, Senior Women Administrators, and COVID-19 Medical Advisory Group, and approved unanimously by the member institutions. The scheduling the format will consist of a 20-game double round robin conference schedule in both men's and women's basketball for each of the conference's 11 member institutions. According to Mike Oresco, the format provides a sensible and fair path for all of men's and women's basketball teams in what should be a challenging upcoming season, and allows each of our teams to play a consistent number of conference games, and will ensure that they are competing against teams that are utilizing our strong health and safety protocols, unquote. In previous seasons, the conference utilized an 18-game schedule for conference games in men's basketball and a 16-game conference schedule in women's basketball. Conference play in men's hoops will begin with 3 windows for games in December. That will be December 14th through the 17th, 21st through the 23rd, and the 28th through the 31st. The conference schedule in women's basketball has 4 windows in December, 14th through the 17th, 18th through the 20th, 21st through the 23rd, and the 28th through the 31st. The Americans men's and women's basketball championships will be contested in the same city and the same venue for the first time in 2021. At Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, they will play host to both events. The Women's Basketball Championship will run March 8th through the 11th, while the men's tournament will take place March 11th through the 14th. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the AAC Report. Only on the Nightline Sports Network, I'm Jeff Allen. We thank you so much for listening.